Walk outside tonight. No animal out there is hunting you. No claws in the dark, no eyes on you from the tree line. Where most of us live, the most dangerous animal you'll meet on the way to your car is a dog on a lead. That's normal now. But for hundreds of thousands of years, something out there hunted us. So step back into it. Waist-high grass, stiff with frost, snow in the hollows, your breath hanging in the air, then the wind changes. Something the size of a small house lifts its head and looks at you. You have no claws, no fangs, no thick hide to save you. You can't outrun it. You can't outclimb it. You can't outmuscle it. By every rule that governs this world, you are meat. And for a very long stretch of our past, that was ordinary. Yet somehow our kind walks out of the Ice Age owning the whole planet. So who won? Hold that question, because it's going to break in your hands about halfway through. And the last chapter of it lands long after everyone assumes the Ice Age was over. It is not the ending anyone expects. First, let's meet the neighbors. A big bull mammoth stood over 10 feet tall at the shoulder. It weighed about as much as a loaded truck. You would have come up to somewhere around its knee. A short-faced bear reared up on its hind legs stood 11 feet high, the largest meat-eating mammal North America has ever had. Cave bears could top half a ton. There were lions larger than any lion now, and rhinos wrapped in wool. Most of these giants weren't hunting you. The mammoth ate grass. The woolly rhino ate grass. But that's exactly the problem. Because a frightened 6-ton animal that only wants you gone will kill you just as thoroughly as one that wants you dead. And there were real carnivores out there too. The cave lion, the short-faced bear, though what they actually hunted is still argued about. Take the mammoth, and the arithmetic is almost a joke. It outweighed you by roughly 100 times. 100 to 1. 100 to 1. And all you had was a stick with a stone tied to the end. So how does the 100 to 1 underdog end up on top? The answer isn't strength. It's something much stranger. In 2015, a study in the journal Science measured how deadly we really are. It set modern hunters and fishers against the predators that compete with them for the same prey. We take adult prey, the breeding animals, at median rates far above what other predators manage. Fisheries take adult fish at around 14 times the rate marine predators do. We kill other carnivores, bears and wolves and lions, at around 9 times the rate they kill each other. The researchers had a blunt name for what we become, the super predator. But we weren't born that way. We built our way there, and the tool that did it is older than our species. In South Africa, archaeologists found stone points that appear to have been hafted onto spears 500,000 years ago. 500,000 years, long before the first modern humans existed. The spear wasn't our invention. We inherited it. A sharp point on a long shaft changes the whole equation. Now the small animal can hurt the big one before it gets close. But a spear only helps if you live long enough to use it, and getting close to a giant was the most dangerous thing a person could do. We have the skeletons that first suggested it. Neanderthals, a human species, our close cousins, hunted the big Ice Age plant eaters, and a lot of that hunting happened close in. Their spears could be thrown. The bones suggest they often weren't. In 1995, 2 scientists lined up their old injuries and saw a pattern. Their broken bones matched one group of people alive today. Rodeo riders, the ones thrown by bulls the better part of a ton. The wounds spoke of wrestling monsters at arm's length. That neat picture has since been questioned. Later work found early modern humans carried the same injuries, so the wounds may not all come from the hunt. But the lesson underneath holds. Up close, the giant usually wins. The humans who lasted found a better way. And it wasn't a better spear. It was distance. By around 45,000 years ago in Europe, hunters were launching weapons instead of throwing them by arm alone. The fracture patterns on the stone tips match a thrower or a bow, not a hand. The oldest spear thrower anyone has actually dug up is far younger than that. Wooden throwers rot, so the weapon is almost certainly older than anything that survived. Far enough that the animal 100 times your size never lays a claw on you. That's the shift that matters, not muscle, distance. And once a hunter can kill from a distance, the relationship changes. We stopped simply surviving alongside the giants, we started building with them. On the cold plains of what's now Russia, hunters left something staggering. A ring of bone 12.5 meters across, out on the open steppe. Nearly 3,000 mammoth bones. At least 64 individual animals counted from their skulls, plus 51 lower jaws hauled and stacked by hand. 25,000 years ago, people were building with the animals that once towered over them. Think about that reversal for a second. The mammoth went from the thing you fled to the walls of a camp. But here's where it gets more interesting than a hunt. When researchers dated the individual bones, some turned out to be centuries older than the rest, up to 1,200 years older. Those animals weren't killed for the structure. The researchers read that as collecting. Those animals were already dead on the steppe, and someone went and gathered what was left of them. Picture the circle. Not a massacre. At least some of it isn't a monument to slaughter, it's something stranger. People treating a dead giant as raw material, the way anyone would treat timber or stone. We don't know for certain what the ring was for. Shelter, storage, ceremony. The bones don't say, which raises the darker question anyway. If we were this capable, did we kill them all? Here's where the clean story starts to fall apart. The popular picture is simple. Humans arrive, giants die, case closed. And as our species spread across the world, the biggest animals did vanish behind us. A global study in 2014 ran the numbers on where the extinctions actually fell. Where our species had been for the longest, the losses were mildest. Where we turned up last, they were worst. Human geography alone accounted for 64% of the pattern. The best climate model managed 20%. That looks like a smoking gun. It's worth being careful about what it is, a statistical pattern across the map, not a tally of animals killed. But look closer. 2 archaeologists went through every North American site where Clovis-era tools had been claimed alongside the bones of extinct animals. 76 of them. Clovis is the first widely recognized big-game hunting culture in North America, around 13,000 years ago. They asked a hard question of each one. Is there really solid evidence a human killed or butchered this animal here? 14 sites passed. 14. 12 mammoth, 2 mastodon. Now hold that against what has to be explained. The extinction took roughly 38 separate kinds of large mammal off the continent. Mammoths, mastodons, giant sloths, saber-toothed cats, 30-odd more. 14 sites for all of that. Later work added a few more animals to the list, but the shape of the problem doesn't change. Either the hunts almost never left a trace, or the 100-to-1 underdog wasn't the whole story. Because something else was happening at exactly the same time. The climate was lurching, warming, then swinging back hard, and the Ice Age landscapes were coming apart. A 2021 analysis found that in North America, the timing of the die-offs tracks temperature swings more closely than it tracks human population growth. So who really killed the giants? Us, the thaw, or both at once? After decades of digging, that argument is still running. The one thing we can say is that we won is far too simple, and we weren't even the only tiny humans in the running. Half a world away, on an island called Flores, lived another kind of human. We call them Homo floresiensis. Grown adults stood about a meter tall, full-grown people no bigger than a modern 6-year-old, with brains roughly a third the size of yours. Their island was a storybook of monsters. Komodo dragons prowled the same ground. There were dwarf elephants, shrunk down by island life, and storks nearly 2 meters tall. A 1-meter person, looking up at a bird nearly twice its own height. If 100-to-1 felt unfair, these were the longest odds of all. Did they hunt those dwarf elephants? We honestly aren't sure. There are cut marks from stone tools on the bones, but a recent study mapped where each kind of mark falls on the skeleton. Dragon teeth on the meat-rich parts, stone cuts on the scraps, and argues the dragons got there first. Which would make the cut marks the work of scavengers, not hunters. Maybe they took what the dragons left. Either way, tiny people held on there for tens of thousands of years, in a land built to eat them. And then, about 50,000 years ago, they vanished from the cave that holds their record. What happened to them after that? Nobody knows. The smallest humans anyone has found, on an island built to eat them, holding on far longer than the odds allowed. And then the trail simply stops. But the strangest turn in all of this isn't about the humans at all. Everyone assumes the mammoths died out, deep in the Ice Age, speared into oblivion, thousands of years before history began. That's wrong. Off the coast of Siberia sits a lonely scrap of land, Wrangel Island. When the sea rose, a handful of mammoths were stranded there, cut off from the mainland, cut off from us. Genetic work puts the founding group at no more than 8 animals, and from those 8, the population climbed to 200 or 300, and then simply held. For 6,000 years. Long enough that when the last mammoths were still breathing, the pyramids of Egypt were already standing. The last of them died only about 4,000 years ago. Let that land. The Great Pyramid had been standing for more than 500 years, and the mammoth was still out there. And here's what complicates the whole who won question. No trace of human hunting has ever been found there, and the earliest human camp on the island post-dates the last dated mammoth. The island's record is thin, so absence is weak evidence. But it is the evidence there is. Their genomes carry all the damage a population that small would be expected to carry. Inbred, thin diversity, even the immune genes narrowed, and it still wasn't enough. A 2024 study found the herd held steady to the end of the record, with the worst mutations being weeded out faster than they piled up. A genome is not a death certificate, but it can weigh an ending, and this one comes out light. A slow genetic rot doesn't fit what the bones say. Then they were gone. We don't know why. The genomes we have don't cover the final few centuries, so the last chapter is literally missing. The researchers think something sudden, a disease, a fire, 1 or 2 bad years, found a small population that was damaged, but holding. The animal that outweighed us 100 to 1 did not, as far as anyone can show, lose a war to us. It ran out of world on an island, 6,000 years after the sea closed behind it. Which means who won was, quietly, the wrong question all along. So let's do something better than answer it. So, walk outside tonight and feel what you didn't notice on the way in. Not fear, the absence of it. The mammoths are gone. The cave lions are gone. The short-faced bear is gone. And the small, slow, soft animal is still here. Not because it beat them. The record doesn't support that, and the people who've spent their lives on this question still can't agree on how much of it was us at all. What we can say is narrower and stranger, something that could be killed by almost anything learned to strike from a distance, to plan, to work together, to live almost anywhere. And then it kept going, through a lurching climate, through a collapse whose causes are still argued over, into a present where the danger is so far gone that we've forgotten it was ever there. We didn't win. We lasted. Stand out there a moment longer and try to feel the size of that.